Hello and welcome back to Just Me and the Watch. Thanks for joining me once again. And if you're new here, if this is your first time, then welcome to my channel. YouTube videos are kind of a new thing for me, creating them anyways, not watching them. So I'm going to be looking for ways to constantly improve this channel and improve your experience here. So you might have noticed that I used a little bit different music for my animated intro there at the beginning. So please leave a comment and let me know how you like it. Or if you don't like it, I'm open to that. Also, make sure that you like this video and subscribe. And don't forget to tell your friends about me. If you're a part of any online forums or social media groups that are interested in watch content, please feel free to share my links. So in the last video that I posted, I shared with you guys my SARB033, and today we're going to be returning to the SARB line with another watch that has really deep connections with a bunch of other Seiko product groups going back to the early 60s or even the late 50s. It kind of depends on which historical sources you're looking into. Of course, I'm talking about my Seiko SARB017, also known as the Alpinist. And the Alpinist name is one that has a really rich history and heritage within the Seiko family, and it's been associated with several iconic timepieces throughout the last few decades. So let's take a look at the history of the Seiko Alpinist. Japan is a tiny island nation that has wielded an outsized influence on the rest of the world for over a century. With its technologically advanced cities and serene countryside, it's also home to between 16 and 25,000 mountain peaks. There is some debate, but the correct number depends on whoever chooses to include peaks under 1,000 meters. The Yama-Otoko, or mountain men, is the name given to those who live and work in some of the harshest environments within these mountains. Historically, these men required robust, quality timepieces to survive their working conditions. Enter Seiko. Some historians mark the first year of production as 1961, but Seiko's own website marks 1959 as the first release of the Seiko Laurel Alpinist, a slightly modified Seiko Laurel with enhanced functionality. With a slim 35mm case, water and impact resistance, Seiko had created their first sports watch, a watch that could be relied on to keep working and remain accurate despite cold temperatures, wet weather, and the frequent shocks and impacts any watch would face on the wrist of a mountain man. The loomed Dauphine hands and mountain peak-shaped indices against a black background provided excellent legibility in all conditions. The first production run lasted through 1963, when a second-generation Alpinist was introduced, this time as part of the Seiko Champion line. Known as the Champion 850, models featured a radial divided dial design that included the word Alpinist and waterproof. For the first time, some versions even featured the Alpinist name plus a small mountain symbol on the caseback. After 1964, it would be 31 years before we got a new Alpinist. 1995 brings us the Red Alpinist, so named because of the red printed title on the dial. This generation of the Alpinist begins to incorporate the design features we are most familiar with today. Coming in at 37mm and featuring 200 meters of water resistance and a Cyclops over the date, this is the first version that features the internal compass actuated by a second crown at 4 o'clock. This time, Seiko offered 3 dial options: a parchment color and a special shade of green featuring gold indices with Arabics at the even numbers, and a black dial with triangular silver indices all around. In-house designer Shigeo Sakai opted for cathedral-styled hands to round out the green and the parchment dials. Here we see the rise of the iconic green Alpinist. Sakai himself is quoted as having chosen an almond green color specifically to match with an included brown alligator strap. This, combined with the gold indices to create a sense of nobility or aristocracy that was befitting of the hobbies of English gentlemen. He envisioned not only using this watch in the mountains, but fly fishing and hunting as well, with an elegance that wouldn't be out of place in the English countryside. Unfortunately, the Red Alpinist's 4S15 high beat movement was difficult and expensive to produce. This particular model was discontinued after only 2 years of production. Soon after, though, in 2003, the world was introduced to the lesser-known Alpinist quartz, featuring a titanium case and bracelet and a GMT function. This time, only 2 dial options were available, white or black, with a special blue edition released as a tribute to the Seven Summits Society to raise awareness of the problem of garbage left behind by climbers as they reach the different summits in Japan. 2006 brings us the SARB Alpinist, the 013, the 015, and the 017, which featured a modernized refresh of the Sakai design from 1995, this time with a 39mm case and slightly updated, though still present, cathedral hands, and that same special shade of green paired with a brown alligator strap on the SARB017. This version was much celebrated and came to the end of its production run in 2018 with a special blue edition released in 2019. 2009 saw the birth of the SARB059 and 063 models, which were essentially SKX cases with different dials and the same 6R15 movement. Fast forward to 2020, and the 7th generation shows up on the scene. With the same colorways as the 2006 watch, the new family bears the Prospex logo on the dial, and the word Alpinist is nowhere to be found. The family continues to grow with the introduction of the Baby Alpinist, featuring a smaller case size and no internal compass, and the 1959, an updated reissue of the original Laurel Alpinist with updated materials and finishing. So as we can see, the Alpinist has always had a form that followed its function and had a really interesting history. And the current Prospex models and the 1959 reissue look like it's got a really promising future as well. It seems, though, like the 2006 version, and I'm talking about the SARB013, 15, and 17, there was really something special about those. They really developed a cult following. Specifically, it seems to me like in the late 20-teens, this watch, especially the SARB017, the green version, it was everywhere. YouTube creators were celebrating it, social media groups were formed around it, and it was the toast of the town on many of the popular watch forums. The Hodinkee blog even got their own limited edition release that featured a blue dial, and it was a great watch, but the availability of that limited release was kind of controversial. I picked up my own SARB017 during all of this hype. I think it was back in 2017 when I picked this watch up. So let's take a look at the features of my very own Alpinist. Where should I begin with my SARB017? I'd like to start with that mesmerizing green dial that sports just a touch of sunburst finishing. The way the gold indices and cathedral hands stand out within that stainless steel case. I could talk about the enhanced utility of the 200-meter water resistance and loom that's actually functional. One could focus on the azimuth compass and the quirkiness of that 4 o'clock crown. Still others might want to highlight the stiff and uncomfortable alligator stamped leather strap originally included with this watch. We could even examine the solid caseback sporting that memorable Alpinist mountain emblem and the overall excellent finishing on this watch. But like many of Seiko's timepieces, the SARB017 Alpinist is much greater than the sum of its parts. Designer Shigeo Sakai was truly onto something when he set out to develop a watch that was functional with an old-world elegance. These watches are so highly revered that it can be easy to forget that they are tool watches designed with a purpose. They just happen to harken back to a time when tools themselves were artfully crafted and handed down from generation to generation. While Indiana Jones would have likely worn a trench watch from his World War I days, it's not a stretch to think that he would have chosen an Alpinist to be his companion on his global adventures. It was hard to resist the urge to put this whole photo essay behind a sepia tone filter. My own approach to owning this watch has been to try to use it as it was intended. It's scene time on the trails, dog walks, planes, trains, and automobiles, and probably most of all at my desk, but it clearly craves adventure and is up for any challenge. This aesthetic meshes really well with almost anything I would choose to wear it with. The utilitarian proportions help it to fit unobtrusively underneath a cuff when I'm at the office. The toolish versatility lends itself to almost any strap you can think of, including bracelet options. If we're honest with ourselves, we love watches because they are wearable art. The Alpinist is no exception. It basks deeply in the Japanese aesthetic of wabi, or the austere beauty of moderation and anticipation. Sure, the gold bits might seem a little ostentatious, but everything about this watch is functional, purposeful. There is no extra, no wasted space or material, and the whole package feels as though it's pulling you towards whatever the next adventure is just around the corner. Personally, I don't think you could go wrong with any of the Alpinist models, past or present. And there you have it. A look at my own SARB017 Alpinist, as well as a little bit of history and information about the Alpinist line of watches. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and I'd love for you to let me know your thoughts in the comments. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe and tell your friends about me, and we'll see you next time.